All right, welcome everyone to the Cluster Addons meeting. Today is September the 15th. Do we have anyone in the call who's new, maybe want to introduce themselves quickly? I guess you can also introduce yourselves later on. Lee, you had something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this would be good. I think this will probably be the main purpose of our meeting today, is to just talk a little bit about build infrastructure. So we started getting some of the structure in place to stage images and get them pushed into a repository that people can pull from, and that would host things like the operators that we're publishing, and then getting CI hooked up to run tests and that kind of thing inside of the repo is also very useful. So Justin has been working with that, and then Jean Sandeep also put in a patch, and I figured we would look at those. And then, yeah, Daniel, are you able to open the participant screen sharing? I don't have to grab host in order to do it.
Sorry, what's that?
Can you open the security tab and then enable participant screen sharing?
Sure. Good Lord. Allow participants to... I don't have the option here. Hang on, Lee.
Maybe I'll just...
I'll just make you co-host. Let's see if that makes it work.
That'd probably work, I guess. Okay, cool. Oh, here, yeah. Allow participants to share screen. I just enabled it. There we are. Sweet. So I just wanted to pull up our agenda really quick. If you're new, this agenda is public, and if you join our group, you can add your own edits. So in this first batch here, this was the GitHub-based workflows, and figured we could take a look at this just as a group and talk about the context as to why it's being proposed. Sandeep, you're on right now. Do you have the ability to speak to the purpose of this patch a little bit?
Yeah, the main purpose was to add some basic tests on Go formatting and Go mods, since there are various operators which each have their own individual Go mods, for example. So this basically adds some GitHub workflow on this. Yeah, I don't know if we need to enable something for the actions to run, but I don't see my PR enabling those actions in this repository.
Because so you added a GitHub Actions workflow here to do some things with Go, and it's supposed to be operating on pushes and pulls, but then you're noticing that these checks are not running on the patch.
Right.
And Justin, your previous patch was also using actions to invoke Container Builder, right?
I did have one. I think it's fine that this PR. I don't think GitHub runs actions that are newly introduced in a PR. So I think I don't think we should worry about the fact that it isn't running them on the PR itself. That's what we're concerned about. I think if you want to test it, you can do it on your own fork, and that's sort of how I've in the past tested it. Like you merge to master. I think you have to merge to master in your fork, but then it will run that test, and you will see the results there in your fork, and then you can sort of point to your fork and say, look, here it is.
Okay, yeah, I am doing that. I did open the PR on my fork to test whether it's running and working. It does work there, but yeah, I was
Cool.
confused whether it should be running on here as well.
So here,
Yeah,
if I go to
I don't know the rules, but I won't worry about it.
Oh, it's just as a pull request.
As a PR here. So the examples of the tests running are all passing on your copy of the
Yeah,
repository.
I had to do some fixes on Go format and Go mod, for example, on my local and push those changes as well.
Yeah, which is why the patch is so big with all of the commit differences here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If it makes sense, I can make a different PR for this, but if it's okay, we can just go ahead like this.
Yeah, I don't think that running Go format and making Go mod compliant is particularly controversial. So this is a really great cleanup. Yeah, I suppose that's probably the major change, and then everything else is just auto-generated, right?
Right. There was one more thing. I think the installer package has some vendoring directories as well. I was wondering if we actually need to have a vendor directory, because there are some Go formats which ran on the vendor directory as well, and the installer stuff is the only directory which has vendor packaging.
We could likely ignore any vendor directory from Go format, but I suppose that it's not entirely necessary to have the vendor.
Right.
If we've decided not to do that in the other projects and construct the Go mod from the cache, then that's fine with me. Go mod has certainly changed significantly from when we initially put some of those things in. Nick, you just pointed out that it looks like there's some missing characters that were unintentionally removed. So maybe we should just fix a particular discrepancy.
It was just a nit. I was
Yeah.
looking at Alex.
Yeah, this doesn't look super intentional. Right, it was, oh wait.
I was just
Never
correcting
mind.
this, I think, a grammatical issue that's probably not important for this PR, just because.
Yeah, it's probably unrelated, I guess. I was misreading this. I thought that this was part of the patch for some reason, but yeah, you're just suggesting a different change. Because this is just a white space thing from Go format, I guess. Okay. Cool. Well, so did the vendor directory, I guess this was affected. Then all of the vendored packages have now changed their SHA. So that probably doesn't actually work for the installer package. We probably need to ignore that or remove the vendor. Suppose we'll is that line of reasoning sensible before we merge this patch, that we should do something about the vendor directory in the installer package, either ignoring it or removing it?
I think so. I think one of the reasons to continue to use, there are two reasons I know of to continue to use vendor. Those two reasons are that sometimes people have problems pulling like a lot of repos, particularly in regions like China. So there can be sort of firewall issues there, and so like if we're just having it in one pull and then you're good is often handy. The other one, which is more harder to fix, I think, is the vendor directory shows you the subset of code that is sort of in scope, and it can highlight for you, like when we change a Go mod dependency, great, what actually changed? And vendor lets you sort of review those changes. So if you're doing a production image, you can get a better feel for what's actually changed. Like, sure, I've added these dependencies, but like, have I pulled in, like, is it a 2-line change or is it a 3 million line change that I've somehow accidentally pulled in, like, the universe? So that's very difficult to address without the vendor directory. So I would suggest, if we can, ignoring it, and if not, we can look at whether the installer and other tools needs to use vendor.
I'm gonna say still conscious apparently. Conscious decision to remove it. That is kind of scope. And then, yeah, I mean, we probably shouldn't be formatting code that's already versioned and vendored from somewhere else as well. So that probably is justification for trying to ignore that. But other than that, I mean, I thank you so much for doing this cleanup. I think this is a really solid thing to be continuously running on the repository. And hopefully we can keep maintaining it and it can grow and live as we add more projects. So this next one is your patch, Justin, which I looked at earlier, and it's looking like a pretty simple, needed set of changes, but we just wanted to do this on the call since we were already reviewing the other one. And basically, to me, it looks like you're just pulling in all of the plumbing for the make file to actually push the image.
Yeah, and push it to the right place, yes. It was just a mistake I made previously just because it was hard. It's sort of hard to test everything wired up.
Yeah, and does this make actually push the image now, or is it just creating it locally?
I'm pretty sure it builds and pushes. I will double check, but I think it makes and pushes. It's a great question.
I think I tried to PM you about this, but yeah, I think I remember looking at the Docker file and it's just a build. So as long as it's making the right tag, that's a great addition. But it might be missing a make push.
I will take a look at that then. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you would like to maybe review that before we merge this patch, or we can merge this as it is and you can submit a subsequent one. Which would you prefer, either?
Whatever is easier. I will get if you beat me to the thing. If you beat me to it, I will send another PR to add the push. But you're right, the push is missing.
Okay. Yeah, it probably would be better to just amend that then in here since it's in the same repo. So
yeah.
Cool. I guess I'll just leave a comment here. Follow up. Let's amend the make file to also push. probably good to have a target for that we can call here after Docker image. I can't talk today. Cool. And then does anyone have any questions just about the build infra stuff, or if they had any other desires? Since we kind of have this thematic topic about the repos automation. If not, we can move on to Daniel's comment.
Yeah, it's really just a quick update. So Santochi's blog post has received like many reviews, and I think it's very close. I think it would be nice if we could all share it once it's landed on the Kubernetes blog. And I just saw while browsing through the pull request, there's two small ones from Santochi. Like one would need a Mac user to quickly look over it, and the other one wasn't very big. But I don't know if we need to do it here.
Yeah, the Mac user PR has been kind of frozen for a while because it's one of those things that just doesn't port across like a Dockerized build. But this PR is very interesting. I don't think Jake is on this call. He might be considered the maintainer of the code that this is modifying, unless maybe Justin or Jeff have a different opinion. But this is for the GKE related add-on manager. And what Santochi's done here is she's started to replace the exec to kubectl inside of the Go code to natively use kubectl as a library. So this might be interesting to people here for a variety of reasons. We've talked about similar patches that Santochi has opened up in the kubebuilder declarative pattern before. But if you'd like to see an example of using kubectl as a library or provide your input on this patch, not up to date on which part of the review cycle we got to here. Yeah, so you still had some comments that Santochi was going to work on, right, Justin? But yeah, this patch is great, really interesting. And go ahead and take a look.
Yeah, I think this one is actually a more simple addition of just starting to use the client set for get instead of calling exec and kubectl. Obviously, Santochi has done the work elsewhere to do apply, for example, but this is like the first step. I think I don't want to speak for Jake, but I would imagine that we want to get the image built and into the E tests, and then we start changing it. So in other words, let's get more some coverage before we make changes. So that's blocked on me, and that other PR where I'm not pushing or not labeling correctly.
See, so this is only using client Go so far, and not changing the apply logic yet, right? Is that what you meant? Is that what you said?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No. So that's much more standard, I guess. Not as interesting, although still very notable. Cool. Yeah, that work is in flight right now. So that's pretty much everything that we had on the agenda. If anyone has other interesting points to bring up, be happy to discuss. I guess as like a related self-plug, the Weaveworks team is working on toolkit.fluxcd.io. This is called the GitOps toolkit, and it's shaping up to be the primitive pieces for what's going to make up a second release of Flux. It's considered pretty much a rewrite, where things have been broken out into modular components, and the reconciliation portions are triggered off of Git repository sources, via Kubernetes events, this kind of thing. It's certainly in the kind of space that Addons works in. We could certainly consider GitOps Toolkit to be an add-on that could install other add-ons, and this will likely have a large user base as Flux v1 users likely decide to migrate to the better tooling that we provide. So feel free to take a look. Some pretty good design docs in there, that kind of thing.
That looks cool. Is Helm operator v2 what was formerly called Tiller, or is it something else?
No, so Tiller, the main thing that makes it different from something like Helm operator is that the Helm operator is driven by a Kubernetes declarative API, whereas Tiller was talked to by its own native API. So it was a form of RBAC escalation, since Tillers typically had very high privileges and had an exposed bespoke non-Kubernetes API. So that is fundamentally different, but you do still receive the active reconciliation pattern of like what's declared to be released is what Helm operator will install for you. And there is a least privilege model for that. For the GitOps toolkit, which is the primitives of Flux v2, Helm operator is just being renamed to Helm controller, and it's a new implementation that can operate as a multi-tenant singleton in the cluster. We're using some API machinery authorization features. We're using some authorization features to impersonate things that and allow us to support a multi-tenant environment in the majority of cases. Sorry, that was kind of a lot of words. Does that answer?
Sorry.
Yeah, does that answer what you were asking?
Is it the use case it's addressing is I can, have I lost audio? I was going to say is it fair to say the use case it's addressing is to install a Helm chart via CRD or CR?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
And not just to release the chart, but also to decide which charts are allowed and from which repositories, also controlled via the custom resource policies. There is another use case in there as well, which is that you can create inter-release dependencies between these custom resource definitions, or between these custom resources. And there is a different component that can apply general manifests as well as customization directories. So you can compose these things together, either by having customizations that create Helm releases, or vice versa. Helm releases that create customizations that sync the Git repo to the cluster. One final use case is that Helm, it's possible to sync a chart from a Git repository. So these are the kinds of things that we found are quite popular in the first rendition of Flux. I certainly would be interested to see as well how some of these GitOps patterns with this tooling that we're playing with composes with other things in the open source and enterprise ecosystem. With OLM, there's a pretty mature product suite there that integrates with Operator Hub and a whole fleet of custom resources and dependency management that could benefit from this type of management. Yeah, that's the last thing I had to share. Again, if you've got any final things that you wanted to add to the agenda, feel free to do so or just speak up. And otherwise, we're kind of at the end of our meeting. So.
I actually had a topic in mind. Since 1.20 cycle is started, do we want to proceed with the KubeADM, installing add-ons via KubeADM? There's one of the enhancements which I think Yuli had opened up. Should we continue with that, or for that agenda, should we open a new KP?
The existing KEP is good. This is really just a task of bringing this up with the KubeADM maintainers. And if you or somebody would like to do that potentially with me, then I'd be happy to start those conversations again. I do think that there is a pretty clear need to either handle the add-ons problem inside of KubeADM or to separate KubeADM from the add-ons problem. And we were in agreement that one of those two was going to need to happen. But I think that some of the priorities for the maintenance cycle previously was just stretched thin. And Fabricio and Lubomir and et cetera, I don't believe any of them are on the call right now. But if we were to chat with them on the KubeADM call, that would be good. Because they're very much open ears on this. They just don't have the cycles to do the work themselves.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I guess there is a meeting tomorrow. We can go ahead and discuss this topic.
Let's see. So for anyone that doesn't know, the KubeADM office hours would be this same time block, but tomorrow. And it's under cluster lifecycle. So if you were interested in joining in for that conversation, it sounds like Sandeep, you want to join in for that, and I'll be happy to jump on. So I'll accept that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll see you there. And anyone else, feel free to join to add to the conversation about add-ons with Kubernetes or with KubeADM. And then, yeah, I'm sure they'll be eager to talk about that. I imagine that there will be some backlog stuff that they want to talk about. So same time block tomorrow. Thanks for bringing that up, Cindy. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. If you're new and you didn't speak up, welcome to the meeting. We hope to hear from you later on. Thanks for staying up to date with what we're doing in this group. And we will convene, if not before, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.